Hello folks and welcome back to my channel. Today's video is gonna be a little different and just a little chatty. I got to do the most wonderful, necessary, amazing suspension yesterday, and I'm still in the phases of like processing everything that suspension was, and it was just such a good one. I thought I'd kind of come on here and talk about that post-suspension experience a little bit. Um, and I think it's one thing to talk about it, like, in general, when we're talking about how it feels to suspend and what motivates people to suspend and why we do it. I think it's very different to talk about it, like, immediately after suspending when all of those emotions and sensations are still really fresh. So I wanted to come in here and kind of be a little vulnerable and share this part of myself for you. This is your content warning that this video is going to include videos and pictures of me suspending and probably pictures of hooks and needles. So if that's something that you don't want to see, maybe skip this one. And this is also your content warning that I don't words great. That's not even a good way to phrase it. I don't, it can be hard to communicate and think very clearly after a suspension. It really, like, they can do a number on you, and I am in that place. So this video also may have some more awkward pauses and just might not be my normal cadence of speech. So I'm not going to go over the basics of body suspension in this video because I have a whole video that already does that and explains that. I'll link it here if you want to check that out first. But I got to do a resurrection suspension yesterday, and that is suspending from your stomach, usually your upper stomach, but you can do reses with any combination of hooks all down your stomach. I did my favorite, which is a 2-point res, so 2 hooks on my upper stomach. And wow. What an incredible experience this res was for me. This suspension position in general is kind of known for being more intense and more difficult, and a lot of folks choose to do this position when they have stuff they need to unpack, they have healing that needs to be done. They're just looking for that more intense experience, and that's how I've always done my reses. I did my very first resurrection at Dallas SusCon. I was feeling very like called to there, and my second one I did to celebrate the life and mourn the passing of my very first piercing mentor. And my third one I did to mourn like the loss of my second apprenticeship, but also opening the new chapter of like progressing in the industry. So resurrections have always been very significant to me and very, very intense. These are suspensions that have fought me the hardest to get up off the ground, that have caused me to have the biggest battle in my brain about whether or not I could do it. And they're usually not super long suspensions because they are very intense, and it can be kind of hard to breathe in that position after a while. Also, your low back gets pretty sore after a while. This is probably not me selling it super great, but I promise it was unreal. But the res I did yesterday was undeniably probably one of the most intense resurrections I've ever done. I've just been in this headspace for a while now where I think I've struggled with feeling confident and capable, and I've been struggling with imposter syndrome. My whole blog post for my Piercerversary this year was about imposter syndrome, and I've really struggled to feel like I deserve the opportunities that are presented to me, that I'm actually as good of a piercer as people think I am, that I'm actually a good coworker and a good friend and a good partner. And I've just been struggling with a lot of imposter syndrome and not really feeling like I'm as capable as the people around me who care about me tell me I am. And I've also been, on this whole like hiatus and mental health journey, and I've really been struggling with like my healing process with all of that. I've made a ton of really great progress healing, but I've been struggling lately with like the understanding that like my trauma is never going to like just go away. I'm just going to get better at dealing with it. But I'm looking at like a lifetime of dealing with all of this same trauma. And it can be hard at times to trust that I'm always going to have the strength to continue dealing with the trauma well. And as many of you know, I started testosterone this year. So I've also been struggling with like confidence and security in my gender identity. I've talked a ton here about feeling not trans enough and not non-binary enough. You know, like starting HRT was a really big and difficult decision for me. I changed my name this year, and it's starting to open new doors in my brain about gender and gender identity that I've been just like trying to keep closed for a while. And I'm getting to a place where like I kind of have to open and confront some of those feelings and some of those thoughts about myself and my body and my identity. And that's also really hard. And it can be very hard to feel confident that like, just to trust that I know myself and I know that I'm doing what's right for me. It can all be kind of hard. So I've just been struggling with a lot of that in my life in general lately. And it kind of all came to a head during this suspension, which is an intense, difficult suspension. It can be really hard to get up off the ground in a resurrection. It can be really hard to stay up in a resurrection. This is a suspension where it's not uncommon for people to go up and get right back down. And that's still a successful res, and that's still amazing. But I came to this suspension carrying all of that. And I can't even really say I came to this suspension. I was definitely called to this suspension. I did a pull for my 29th birthday, and I did a res hook placement for my pull. That's what I felt like I wanted to do. And from that day, I wanted to suspend in a res. I wanted to hang in a res. I was having dreams about it. I was listening to music and finding music that just called to me as music that I listened to during my res. My old res hook holes were getting itchy. Like, I was just being heavily called to do this suspension for like months. My brain was just like, we need to do a res. So that finally happened last night, and I have never felt so, not even strong, because I didn't feel strong in the moment. It was almost a place of neutrality. It was a place of just acknowledging my body was capable of doing this and could do this like this. And I've had suspensions before that made me feel strong and powerful and incredible. And this wasn't that, which definitely made it more intense, because this wasn't me hyping myself up and feeling overconfident. This was just me in a very calm and collected way, just saying, no, yeah, I can do this. If you had asked me before going into this res how it would make me feel, I probably would have said that it was a suspension that made me feel strong or powerful. And it wasn't that. I took my hooks and I felt this feeling of like, oh God, like I have to get up in a res now. Like, this is going to be so fucking hard. Like, this is going to be so difficult. I'm going to have to really fight myself on this one. Can I even do it? Like, is it even gonna be a good suspension? And I got rigged in and we put the first tension on, and I was like, okay, yeah, this feels fine. I'm sure it's gonna set in a little bit. And I asked for more tension and more tension and more tension until I was like halfway there, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna pause here for a little bit. And in my brain, it felt like minutes that I was arguing with myself, you know, right at that peak point of tension, like ready to get off the ground, and just my brain was the one thing defeating me. And I finally just leaned into the presence of my teammates and the presence of the people who love and support me, and got right up off the ground and just, well, I'll show you the videos. during this whole suspension, I didn't necessarily feel super strong or super empowered or super intense. The emotions were very quiet, but I was very present in my body. I was very present in my mind, and my thoughts weren't racing. My head was very empty, and it was just this quiet sense of, yeah, I can do this. Yeah, I've got this. This is okay. And this suspension truly reminded me that I am capable, that I am worthy, that I am deserving of the love and the friendship and the companionship that I have. This suspension reminded me that it is important to weigh your success equally to your failure. That it is important that it is okay to be confident in yourself or in your skills, that you are allowed to acknowledge good things about yourself. This suspension didn't need to make me feel super strong or super cocky or like a badass like some suspensions do. This suspension just quietly came along and said, there's no need for fanfare. There's no need to make a big deal out of it. You've got this. There was also just this really incredible energy in the space when I did this suspension, and I was, surrounded by the team, people who I love, people who I really cherish and care for, and it was just a reminder that I have so much love and so much support in my life, and a reminder to trust myself and to trust the people around me who care about me. And yeah, it was so intense and so beautiful and just one of the most magical experiences I've had with this suspension position. And it was pretty intense once I got back to the ground, and I won't lie, every time I hang a res, I hate the process of post and getting the hooks taken out and getting bandaged. I will tell no lies, it sucks. And the drive home was definitely a little rough, but it's the following morning, and my stomach is still fairly sore, but not terrible. And how to describe how I'm feeling right now? It's like someone put a big fuzzy blanket in the dryer and they just took it out and it's all warm and toasty, and I'm just wrapped in it with all of that warmth and that softness and that comfort. That is what today feels like. I don't have a way of putting how I feel right now perfectly into words, but I am so content. I am feeling so loved. I am so much more present in my body than I almost ever am, and so much more aware of my physical state, and not in like a negative way, but in like a very just like neutral way, a very neutral way. And it never gets old. Every single time I suspend, whether it's a good suspension, a great one, or even a not so great one, I feel like I learn so much more about myself, so much more about the world that I exist in, so much more about the people that I care about. It's the best thing ever. People ask me all the time, like, what my favorite piercing to do is, and if we were really talking about every facet or element of piercing that I do, it's suspension, hands down. This is magical. This is everything. This is such a huge part of my life and who I am, and how much suspension has changed my life, and how honored I am to get to share this experience with so many other people, especially so many first-timers, and to give other people a fraction of what suspension has given me. I still will have lots of processing to do after this suspension, and lots to meditate about and sit with, and lots to talk to my teammates and friends and even my therapist about. But once again, it was the exact right suspension at the exact right time in my life. And I wish I could give you guys a crumb of what it felt like to be so called to do a suspension like this for months, and then to do it and just have it be so incredible, and how powerful such a quiet suspension could be. I'm sure I haven't done the perfect job of explaining it in this video because I can feel that my brain is all over the place and very much still processing that post-hooks headspace. But I wanted to come on here and share a little bit of that vulnerability and a little bit of what it feels like after you suspend, and a little bit of what types of processing and experiences might happen for you, because I think if we shed light on these things, this is what will help people understand this thing that I love so much. If you're interested in suspending, the team that I work with, Skynthesis, is based out of Easton, Pennsylvania. I'll link the website down in the caption below. We do book out anywhere from 5 to 6 months in advance, so if you're interested in suspending with us, please, fill out that form early, because we do book out quite a bit. And other resources for finding teams in your area are the Body Suspension group on Facebook. I'm also going to link my blog post all about suspension, which also kind of explains more about how and why people do this. I'm going to now hop off and have a very relaxing day where I spend most of it cuddling with my cats and eating good food and nourishing my body after that experience, and just sitting with and enjoying this post-hooks glow for as long as it will last for. And I hope you all have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I'm sure we'll sit down and talk again soon. Bye.